Hey, it's Michael. It's week 6. We are past the midway point. So, I think it's a really good time to assess maybe, where we've been because at this point, I think I attempt at least to let you guys explore these topics, and the way you explore it is through this medium, or sorry, through mural. And exploration, I will just say, is usually about making lots of assumptions, and maybe those assumptions turn out well, and sometimes they don't. But the whole point of this, using this canvas, and it kind of worked out well because literally canvas was down last night. Uh, but the thing is that that's imposing an information architecture upon you. Even this, by the way, Mural imposes an information architecture. This, in some ways, is you contributing to a database. I know it doesn't seem that way, but it definitely is in a database somewhere, and they can do this hundreds and millions of times, right? So the point is they've come up with these structures so that you're allowed to do things like zoom in and out, or this might be more about the display, but this little thing right here is a table and it's got data in it. That's how this works. So I wanted you to explore that because what we call that is discovery. So if we went all the way back, I'm not going to go back to week 1, but remember week 1, we talked about getting lost. And we also talked about containers, right? And what you'll find, and we're finding it right now, is everyone has invented their own containers. Now, some, like Facebook, we might get to in a minute, are starting to regularize their containers, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Don't worry about it. What I am saying is that when you start out this project as being an architect, you do discovery. And that's what you've done over these past few weeks. You've found a database that you now should feel comfortable with, and maybe you don't. So don't worry, you can continue to add things to your database. I think I saw a few where I think you need some more stuff, but you never used, you might not be used to and shouldn't be used to looking at it at that level, right? Here's a column name and a piece of data in it. And you're used to things that might be more visual, like an image, right? Images are important, colors are important, alignment is important. All these things are important, but they aren't when you're looking at the secondary layer, which is to put things into HTML or controlled vocabulary. So just to say, this week was about controlled vocabularies, things you cannot make up. Like you cannot really make up an HTML tag. Okay? So you cannot make up a taxonomy. Honestly, the taxonomies we have for everything have been refined over, for a long time. And only when you have new things come in do taxonomies have to sort of form. So if you go over here, the first question might have seemed to throw you off. Single words that are unique, right? So if you go to week 2, when you looked into Twitter or X or whatever it's called, they invented the hashtag because guess what? When you have a hashtag and some sort of, words, you've made up a word. And the hashtag it was sort of fun because there's a lot of keyboard things on our keyboards that we never used, like the at sign was never used until computers came along and they're like, wow, this is really useful to use this at sign to talk about a person or an address. And a hashtag almost never used, right? I don't recall ever really seeing it except it's like number 1, right? But a hashtag or that symbol in front of a word made a unique word because computers are stupid. They don't know anything. So when people start to try to find things, which is where we're going to go now, they need these some concept, some mental model, and everyone's are different. So as the architect, you're going to do discovery, like what do people call this stuff that I am using? And this is true of every data source, by the way. I know we're doing kind of the easy version of things, but if you ever organize data, it always has to have taxonomies. There's honestly, and uniqueness helps when you're trying to differentiate it from other things. If you have an intranet in your work, for example, and you try to use a free text search that isn't AI augmented now, because we can get into AI in a second, but yeah, it's hard to find anything. So remember, all of this here is for feedback, also just to get you used to the fact that, boy, it's hard to make sense of things. And even I, just so you know, we don't work synchronously, right? You might work early in the morning, you might work late at night. It doesn't matter in our course. What matters is the cadence. And I'm just going to reiterate you use this forum to try out things and to get feedback from others. And weirdly enough, I hope copy from others because there is not a ton of originality in these worlds that we're in. Like, there's no points for having original HTML. The point you're trying to get is to have meaningful HTML. And I'm going to give you each feedback on your assignment, but my hope is by seeing it this way and really struggling perhaps over many days to understand, like, what does this stuff really do, that you've gotten an appreciation that a lot of the work happens behind the scenes. You cannot, as an architect, share this exploration with somebody else. You may now know why you might need to really think through your structure in dealing and talking to developers, because developers might indeed just throw away your entire structure and ask for a drawing and say, what do you want it to look like? And I'm trying to get you to understand, like, hey, you're an architect, you want it to function. Look is something we're going to get to, maybe never actually in this class, but we're going to get to a little bit more visuals. Lastly, let's see, taxonomies. There are sometimes multiple and there's sub-taxonomies, right? There might be 10 terms that kind of describe things at a high level, and then there might be 20 terms for each of those terms. So exploring it now is good because we're going to really start to use this as we move along also. If you haven't seen, I like to introduce things a couple weeks early before they become important, so they sort of plant themselves in your head to maybe just give you the time. And the point of this is to not engage in these topics on the deadline. That is really the point. Deadlines are here just because, hey, it's a course. If we could spend the rest of our lives together, that'd be great, but we can't. We only get 10 weeks together, and I like to make it as valuable as possible. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it misses, but hey, that's the way it goes. So, as I said, I think we've gotten a lot of things. I really appreciate the different ways people are trying to make it easier for others. But if you look at this little dot, right, these little dots are the reason we're using this, is because our book is called Understanding Context. And because we can now use context, meaning this post-it note and the idea in it, to talk about that, I think it just is it's very different from a threaded conversation, because the threaded conversation, I'll just let you know, in Canvas is kind of auto-graded. It just says, hey, did you do something? I have to do all of this by hand. I have to go in and I have to look, but I like it. I just want you to know that I cannot spend 24, all my time making sure that I respond quickly, because I really do want to encourage you and offer any opinion that might help you along. So as we've gotten halfway through, maybe now it's kind of dawned on you that you're in an interesting experience. Maybe you've not been in a class like this. If you'd like to let me know the positives and negatives of this. I know it's hard because you think it's going to change things, but I love to have feedback, actually. I have taught this class in this in this way for quite a while, but I always love to know, like, hey, maybe as I said with AI, I didn't know that AI would do most of the work of the data. I'm really happy that it did, because I want you to be aware of the data, not have to do a lot of the mechanics of it. Same thing with HTML. I actually got GPT to do a pretty good job of doing markup, but it wasn't the same as doing it by hand, because you'll make mistakes, and making mistakes is usually the way, or not mistakes, but you'll not understand something fully, but by exploring that, maybe getting feedback, you learn something. Oh, why couldn't you use this tag? Or why didn't this um why isn't this really adding much? Like, I think a few of you, by the way, just kind of put your things in a list. It certainly works, but it's no different than just putting a table on the screen and putting your data out there. You're not helping someone find something, and that's really where we're going to turn to. So let's turn, shall we, into a wholly new thing. And just because I like let's see, a little small. Where are you? Week 6. Verbs. Okay. Guess what? We were in nouns, now we're in verbs. Cool, right? Okay, so we're still, the thing is, we haven't really moved too far up here. If it's readable by a computer, it's possible to call it information, right? Information just has context. You've created a context within your record that something's more important than another, which turns it into information. That's all. Because if it was just all data, you have to figure out what's important, right? And nobody's going to do that. We don't have time. But remember, we live in a world that's insanely rich with information, right? And we're going to get up the ladder soon. But just to let you know, we still haven't gotten there. But the taxonomy is something that it has to be used, and you can use it to find things. So let's just go into some of these things. Once again, I've got a video that kind of is like not like me talking now, but it's me being more explanatory. And then this is just some helpful things about navigation, because now we're going to move. That's why we call it verbs. Navigation tends to be action oriented. Noun oriented things are okay, but usually people are here in this world, if it's not a book, to solve a problem. So what one of the actions is, and this is, by the way, a really good way to do this early, because you can pick a really easy one if you go early. We're going to go into design patterns, and these are navigation patterns. I've listed them here, and I just want you to go find and post a picture of a site that uses these. So this is just a kind of a group source. Like, you can't do all of them yourself. Maybe you can look at others and say, hey, there's a lot of things. These are what they're called. Talk about controlled vocabulary. So if you are an information architect, you will want to know these terms, because this is where navigation goes. And navigation is now your big focus. How do people get around your database and find anything? By the way, I did one. So you can also let me know. I took away a lot of my examples. If you want more examples by me, let me know, just to maybe set a, because I noticed a lot of people working really, really, really hard on the HTML, and it really shouldn't take that long. But hey, all's good. I like navigation, by the way, that is imaginative. I kind of have an example here of Airbnb has some really interesting ideas. Now, they do not have to reflect your topic. Okay. Right? Or I'm sorry, they don't have to reflect your database. They're kind of a layer above, like even more. And also, they're very, very, you have to fit them on a screen. So you don't get that many. That's why I kept asking about how many parts of your taxonomy there are, because if there's 50 or 1,000, you definitely can't list them on a screen, right? You need to find higher levels. So this is called browsing, right? I also love anything to do with, um, you know, bigger ideas like emotion. Hey, this is a book that has all these movies, but they've managed, they've organized them by how they make you feel. So think about your topic now in a different way. And what we're going to do to explore this is to create a sitemap. Okay. So a sitemap, and I explain it in my video more, but we're going to build a sitemap, which is just the words that you're going to use basically to help people find records and get results from your table. And we're going to use Figma because guess what? Been using Mural since it started, and I've been using Figma since it started. And I think everyone now should be familiar with Figma, but it's just a thing to draw in and easy to share. And that's what the goal is to make things easy. There are also, what is it? Okay. There are also some ideas from last time. We'll get rid of these. Okay, good. Okay, we'll start fresh. Anyway, the mobile has a little different aspect to it, and mobile is important as well. So I have topics. So that's a little overview. If you would like an in-person meeting, certainly happy to do it. Or if you want a one-on-one meeting because you're concerned about something, let me know. I'm here, but I just don't want to let you. I try to respond really quickly so that I can help you along, but I can't be always attentive because I have other responsibilities, as we all do, right? So just be aware, Mondays are kind of winding down. I'm excited to get to the next topic. This, by the way, will be the next 3 weeks that we're going to develop this project, and we're going to add on to that, and we're going to add more fidelity as we go along. This is, by the way, the first time as an information architect that you might show something to someone. Remember? So all the work you've done before is discovery of your topic. Now you're trying to show your point of view as an architect. How do people find things? So it is a real shift. We also are getting in this schedule, we're supposed to have a week off in Thanksgiving, which I'm not thinking is going to be very helpful. But then after 3 weeks, we do this project and we go into the final. But just letting you know, this is going to take a little longer. It's not the regular 2 week cycle, and it counts for a little more because you've got a lot more opportunities, and there are also pieces to this puzzle that I want you to do, so you get more the grade goes up. The first two are only 10% of your grade, the first two assignments, and that's on purpose because I don't want you, you don't need to stress out. It's not, it's really just there to get your mind around it. So let me know. I'm happy to answer any more questions and welcome to week 6.